Okay. You cast a spell and, actually, well, wait, does that have a verbal component?
Yeah, I guess I can check my character sheet. It'll be on there real quick. Okay, how do I get to my... I'm logged out. Hang on, I got to log back in. Sign in. I don't remember whether this was Google, Twitch, or Apple. Probably Google. Probably that Google account. Okay, let's log back in. Okay, which...
Hey there, I'm Permanent DM, the creator of the game All Mice Die. And today, we're going to talk about digital tools. How many digital tools do you use at your game table? Depending on your thoughts and opinions, it might be something from, what do you mean digital? It's a game of pen and paper and dice, to, what do you mean table? Do you mean the compendium tables on Foundry? Those are extremes, and yes, most people fall in the middle, but it is a pretty polarizing issue. As game designers and game masters, how do we navigate a community who are on such radically different pages that one page isn't a page, it's a wiki? It's a tough problem, and I don't think there are any picture-perfect solutions. What I would say that both game masters and designers, we need to have an opinion and then support that opinion as we go. As a game master, you need to be clear and upfront with your players about expectations at the table. If you're playing at a real-life table and you don't want digital character sheets, or you don't want people to have their phones out, or you don't want people using digital dice, just be clear about it with your players up front. Explaining why you don't want these things might feel like a strange and unnecessary extra requirement, but it helps the players understand that it isn't arbitrary. At my IRL tables, I'm okay with phones and digital sheets, but I ask players to use physical dice. Then I explain that the reason for this is that the mechanics of All Mice Die lean into group play. I think it makes for a better experience at the table if the warlord can see the extra die being rolled across the table when they empower the barbarian. It isn't always the same way that digital is okay at my table, though. I used to say no phones at all. Then I thought about why and realized the actual problem was when players use their phones as a reason to disconnect from the table rather than as a resource to connect with and play the game. Now I just tell my players that if they are playing Candy Crush or doom scrolling through Facebook and they don't know what's going on when it gets to their turn, myself and the other players are going to see it as a sign that they don't value our time. That same rule applies when I run online, where all of the tools are digital, and I have no control over whether they are playing World of Warcraft on the second monitor. The tools don't matter, the distraction does. The folks that are anti-digital often cite that element as the reason that they don't like or don't allow digital tools. They've been burned too many times by checked-out players, and that is completely fair. But even those purely analog tables I have found are still digital in some ways. I played with a group using AD&D rules, but we had most of our communication over Facebook and made our characters on a website. Some people copied down that character onto a character sheet provided by the DM, but others just printed that sheet out. Only the DM had a physical copy of the rules, and even if everyone had a physical copy of the rules, he had house rules, just like every DM I've ever played with, and those were stored on a Google document. So what did they really mean that they were an all-analog group, really? They meant that they had pen and paper and physical dice at the table itself. As a designer, we could look at how things are actually being used and try to design for our audience. I found that as time goes on, even at tools-averse tables, they get used if they serve a purpose. When I watch a new player learn there's an app to make a character and to look up the rules, like Shadow Darklings for Shadow Dark or the Mothership app, you can see a weight lift off their shoulders as they can click a few buttons and be ready to play. They want to engage with the game and are relieved to find there's a way they can engage with the game that they can really access, which is the real key here: accessibility. Sometimes that means making it easier for people with disabilities to play, but sometimes it just means the ease of access for everyone, and these things are easier when done digitally sometimes. The web app we're developing for All Mice Die is going to have an option to read the rules to you if your vision is impaired or if you're just an audio learner. Accessibility through design of a physical product is also important, but the toggles we have when we think about these games digitally are so much more varied that designing with them in mind gives us a lot more that we can work with. One of my players in my long-running D&D 4e campaign is blind, Anything past about here is a blur of colors. When we played at a physical table, we used a battle map in the middle of the table, and I had a player next to her use this. This little grid was something we had to represent what was in the middle of our table. When I moved a piece in the middle, the helper player would move something to the corresponding thing on this little minimap. This tool could have been digital or physical, but the important part is that it allowed them to better engage with the game, and that's a win in my book. If you design your TTRPG product to be accessible through digital resources, you do not want to make them feel mandatory. I have bounced off of so many board games that had a mandatory app that went with it. One of my biggest problems with the 2014 5th edition books was that it felt like it was designed to be a wiki with multiple nested CX links that a computer could do instantly and the user doesn't even notice. But if you're playing in a physical book, it might be 5 minutes referencing something that references something else that references something that is in an entirely different book. A good game master and a designer designs with the tools at their disposal in mind. Focusing exclusively on analog means you're going to miss out on playing with some awesome people at your table because you didn't make it easy or even possible for them to play. Focusing exclusively on digital means that the people who want analog resources get crippled access or maybe no access to the material they want to use at the table. It's the always online AAA game requirement wearing glasses and a fake nose. I've talked a lot about what not to do and what are bad examples, but let's focus on being a little bit more positive here. I've already mentioned Shadow Darklings and the Mothership app. They are great and, as far as I know, actually sanctioned by the creators of the games themselves. Similarly, I will contest that playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition at the table and playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition on Foundry are effectively two different games because of those modules. Foundry and Paizo worked together to make such a powerful tool to access the game that you don't need to know a lot of the rules to start playing or even to play it for years at a time. Importantly, all three of these games are also perfectly playable at the table. You don't need these tools, but if you want to use them, you have such greater access of people to play with because those tools help your community grow and build, and you're able to invite more people. That is digital done well. A support structure for at-table play and online play, but not something that is required in order for those things to function. What is missing here, however, is a tool for communities. These tools are actually being made now, but I don't think anyone has completely cracked the code yet. Message boards and email lists have morphed into forums, who themselves have morphed into specialized apps, websites like Start Playing, and Discord servers for various communities. Games want to hit a wide audience of players, so they can get sales and people playing it and find players, and they are constantly evolving to find new ways to make their games easy and approachable and enticing to jump in and start playing. The oldest of old school games can still benefit from those digital things. Even the moment the session starts, they turn all the screens off. Which is why the digital tools we're developing for All My Die are focusing on creating access first and everything else a distant second. Discord integration and community listings will help you advertise your community and find others you want to play with, even if you're not playing All My Die. The app should allow you to use the tools to change the presentation of your game to allow for players to dip their toes in and play quickly, but always have another link, another entry, another thing they can read if they want to dig deeper and master the system that they are playing. What about that analog group I talked about at the beginning of the video? The app gives them the ability to find players, to communicate with their players, and most importantly, to display the versions of the rules they want to use as one complete set, rather than something the DM has physically, but you have to modify by something held digitally in a separate space. The app allows you, through toggles and checkboxes viewable on the GM side of the screen, to build your house rules into the rulebook and then share them with your players. Not only does this mean you don't have players reading things that are not applicable to them, but the amount of stuff they have to read goes from this massive tome of information to something more manageable. Something players might actually read. Like in my other videos, I feel it is important to put my money where my mouth is, so to speak, when it comes to the topic at hand. Right now, my game, All My Die, is currently funding on Kickstarter. One of our stretch goals is to develop this tool for people to play my game and others, a digital resource for GMs and players to access all the content from the Kickstarter on the app, in addition to their PDF for physical copies of the game and the adventure. So if you like what I'm doing here, like, subscribe, hit the bell button and consider supporting me on Patreon if you want more access to cool stuff. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can also join the Discord server link below, because at the end of the day, West Marches is all about community. Until next time, thanks for watching.